Will the Delta variant affect the housing market? I'll explain next on Tom's Take. You're definitely going to want to watch this one. We know that the Delta variant is a real thing affecting people's health and their lives in the United States right now. What we're going to talk about here is how that Delta variant will affect the housing market, or if it even will have an effect. So what I did was I reviewed some data from the lead analyst at Housing Wire to look at what's happened over the past, 16 months at this point, from March up until where we are right now in August. And what we're seeing is there's been two surges to date: the surge from last summer and the surge in the winter. And when you look at that historical data, those surges did not impact the economic data in a big way. We didn't see economic data move one way or the other. It kind of kept trucking along. And the reason for that, and what I'm clear on, is this: that there's no way to replicate the fear that we saw in March of 2020 when all this news broke out. Sports were canceling their seasons, people were shut down in their homes. There's no way to replicate that fear. And I'm not saying the virus isn't real. I'm not saying that this isn't a serious health issue in the country. We're talking strictly about the housing market and economics right now. And when you look at the data, that March 2020 fear has not been replicated with the subsequent surges that we saw in summer 2020 and winter 2020 to 2021, right at the turn of the year. So if you look at historical data from right before COVID-19 happened in February of 2020, housing numbers were breaking out all over the place. The market didn't surge because of COVID-19. The market surged because of millennial home buyer demand and rates continuing to stay low. And with millennial home buyer demand, like we've talked about before, there's potentially 30 to 40 million buyers coming to the marketplace. This is supply and demand that happened to occur in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. So with 70+% of the country having at least one shot of the vaccine right now, and seeing that the curve of the virus is falling in other countries, the Delta variant, while it's a serious health issue, don't get me wrong, it's very real, it is not going to impact the housing market. All the data we've talked about, that inventory is starting to come up a little bit, that rates are kind of dancing around that 3% range, they may be up to higher towards the end of the year, which is where a lot of the economists are predicting, from NAR, Housing Wire, the Mortgage Bankers Association, to name a few. That's all going to stay on course because people are learning to live with the virus. They are learning to live with the current health conditions, and they're still valuing home more than ever. Looking at the surge data from summer and winter, that's no different than the Delta variant. It's the same kind of effect on the market, and while it may have a short-term impact on stocks and rates, it's not having a long-term effect on housing. So don't let that Delta variant get you off your housing decisions. If you're thinking about buying and you're doing it for the right reasons and you want to save money now so you don't spend more later, don't let that throw you off your game plan. The same if you're planning to sell. Don't let that throw you off your game plan, because what we've seen is that the housing market is stronger than ever. And this was happening before COVID-19, and then we had a major pause, especially in Pennsylvania, for 2 months during the meat of the spring season, and then it was right back where it was on that hockey stick type growth. And we're going to see the same thing continue. So this will not have an impact on where the housing market goes. Obviously, everyone's going to have specific questions about this. That's where you've got to talk to a professional. That's where you've got to get some local advice and find out what's actually happening in the market, not relying on a third-party story from your friend who just bought a home or someone that doesn't know what's going on in housing. Get the expert advice. That's always going to be the best path, especially when talking about something as important as this. Any questions, you need anything, you know where to reach us. We'll be back next week. You're definitely going to want to watch this one.